Hi friends. So I am remembering that a year ago Peyton took me to Paris for my birthday. I was turning 50 and we wanted to do something big to mark that that we'd come through cancer and that I was having a big birthday. And so he asked me, we thought about where we'd want to go, where I would want to go, and Paris is never a bad idea. One of the things that I did while we were there is he went on a history tour and I took a couple of cooking classes because I like to cook and I love things that are French. And so, so that's what we did. And it was great and it was really fun. And there are a lot of things that are happening and a lot of things that we're thinking about these days, but it's really nice to remember. So I'm gonna make one of the dishes that I learned in my class. It's basically a beef stew, but I'm gonna use pork tonight because I don't have beef in the house. And so I'm gonna do the same elements that we did that night, or that during that class, and it was this beautiful, beautiful apartment in Paris that we went to, and there were a couple other people, and we basically just kind of came in, got to know each other, had a coffee, then we went to the markets and bought vegetables and meat and cheeses and fruits and some bread, and we had a really wonderful time in the market and learning different things about that. And then we also then went back to the apartment and we cooked together. And that was really fun. I would totally do it again. I thought about doing some cooking classes in New York, but nowadays we don't do things like that. So yeah, but for now I'm gonna put one big onion in. I'm gonna turn down my heat a little bit, back down. So I've got one big onion, and I've got some carrots, and I'm gonna get these guys in there and get them going, and then I'm gonna get the meat in there and get it brown. I'm gonna take the vegetables out once they've softened a little bit. So I'm just gonna I've got 3 medium carrots, 1 big onion, a little olive oil, not good olive oil because, well, you don't need good olive oil when you're cooking. Good olive oil you use to dress things, right? So I wonder if you have taken any cooking classes, or if that's something that's interesting to you, or is this as far as a cooking class, which is not, that you'd like to do. But I've done a couple of different ones. I did some, like I said, when we were in Paris last year for my birthday. And then I also have done some at the mall here at the Sur la Table store at the Quaker Bridge Mall, which I believe now is closed, which is too bad because I really enjoyed that. I took a Greek class with my best friend Christy when she was here. And then I also took a paella class. That was really fun. Should make paella for us. That's a good idea. We haven't done that. How do you feel about saffron? Do you like it? I have a fish stew that calls for saffron that I'm gonna make further down the road for us as we get into winter stews and soups. I also have a Scottish stew that's wonderful called Cullen Skeen, which is made with smoked haddock, which is not easy to find, but you could find another smoked fish and do it with that. But the flavors and the potatoes, and oh, it's so good. But that's a different day. So we're just gonna let these cook for a couple of minutes, get a little soft. We're not looking for them to caramelize. We're looking them just to kind of get a little translucent, get a little soft. We'll take them out. We're just building flavors, right? We're always building flavors. Let's give this a little salt and pepper. And then I will put the pork in and get the pork going. I just have a pork tenderloin that I have chopped up into chunks. And a lot of times when you get a pork tenderloin, I don't know about you, but I always think about cooking it or barbecuing it or baking it as a whole piece, but you don't have to. You could use it and cut it up and use it for enchiladas or for fajitas. And tonight we're gonna do what should be beef, but which is gonna be pork. But I don't think, I've got chicken broth because I didn't think far enough ahead to get my brick of broth out of the freezer. I'm gonna grab something to show you really quickly out of my freezer. This is not chicken broth. This is actually marinara. So this is a flat slab of marinara frozen in my freezer. If I'm gonna freeze something, especially broth, I will freeze it in a large Ziploc bag. These are from IKEA. I love these, they're huge. They're really good, they're really solid. They last forever. But I take whatever it is, I put it in the Ziploc, I put it on a cookie sheet, and I put it in the freezer, and then it's solid. Once it's frozen solid, then I take the cookie sheet out, and then I can put the broth in and stack them. So that's what I do with my broths. That's what I've done with, I have a chili and a marinara in the freezer. So I just rip them out and I'm good to go. Because I don't really know how to cook for two. In fact, last week is the first time I have ever cooked a small pot. You know, I have my big pot and my smaller pot. It's the first time I've ever cooked a small pot curry that was still like 6 servings, and we still have eaten for quite a few days. But I don't know how to cook for a small amount. So but I do like the fact that if I make something big, that it feeds us for quite a few days. And so I'm not cooking something new every evening. In fact, I probably cook 2 to 3 times a week, and we eat off of whatever I've cooked for those nights. It's not a fresh meal every evening, and I have lots of evening meetings, so it wouldn't work that way. And Peyton is fully capable of feeding himself. He lived almost 40 years without me, and he was just fine. Turns out he fed himself just fine for lots of years. He does prefer when I cook because it's more interesting. It's probably also healthier. But yeah, this is what I know so far. So I'm gonna let these cook a little bit more, and then we'll heat up the meat. Okay, let's do that. I've also added mushrooms. So I have some really large button mushrooms, Bella mushrooms, and they're cooking in and giving some of their moisture to the carrots and the onions. So I let the carrots and the onions get, it'll take a long time for the carrots to get soft, right? But we don't want them to really be soft. The onions are soft, but the mushrooms, I need to let a little bit of their natural juices out. Because they are in a pan with a lot of other things, they're not gonna get crispy at all. They are just gonna basically steam, which is kind of what I want. I'm not looking for a caramelization on the carrots, on the onions, or on the mushrooms. I'm just looking for them to steam and let go of some of their juices so that can contribute to the flavors of the stew as well. But I need them to shrink down a little bit. So we're gonna let them cook for a couple of more minutes. So I'm gonna say probably 5 to 7 on the carrots and the onions, and then I'm gonna say probably another 7 to 10 for the mushrooms. But keep stirring them, give them some attention. Sometimes I bring a book or an article that I'm reading into the kitchen with me as I'm kind of working on these things. So just how I manage my time in the kitchen and as I'm preparing dinner. And a lot of times what I'm doing now is I'm getting this going. It's gonna cook for an hour and a half between dinner time and I have a meeting, and then we'll eat dinner after my meeting. So that's how it works in our house. And that's, I mean, sometimes Peyton will go on and eat without me, or I'll have a little bit while I'm getting ready for the meeting to start. But I like to have them done ahead of time so I could have a little before dinner or before the meeting, because sometimes my meetings are late. But tonight we'll eat after the meeting because it shouldn't be that long of a meeting. How do you manage your life in meetings? I'd love to know. Okay, I've got the heat back up. I've got all the little cubes of pork, and in they go. The pan is hot, and I'm gonna bring it down a little bit because I don't want it to burn, but I do want caramelization this time. So as you can see, I don't have a full pan, right? I don't have a full pan. I'm gonna salt and pepper these while they're in there. I should have done that before I got them in. But I don't want them to steam or even really braise at this point. I want them to get some good crispiness and color. And if you crowd the pan, if you end up stacking meat on top of meat, it's gonna steam. It's not gonna get any caramelization. It's not gonna get any crispiness on it. And what we want is yumminess. What we want is for it to get some good color. So I know that the temptation is to crowd the pan. You want everything in at once. You want it all to cook. You want it to really just get going, right? So you can walk away from it. Take your time with this part because it will, it's gonna bless you in the long run. So we're just gonna let those sit for a couple of minutes on this one side. Let's maybe take a little swig of the white wine we have set aside. We've got fresh parsley. Can you see that? Fresh parsley to go in. I've got thyme. I wish I had fresh thyme. I don't, but that's okay. Okay, they're beginning to get some color on them. Great. That's what we want. Beginning to get a little color. And that's what we want because it's gonna sit in chicken broth. It's gonna sit in wine. It's gonna stew. Basically, once it's all back in the pot together. We're gonna eat this over rice, and we are gonna add cream. Let's not pretend. It's a French dish. It wouldn't be French without cream, right? Nor would it be as good. You could eat this just without any, you could have, baguette or a good bread with it. I didn't make bread today. I thought about it, but it didn't happen. So instead, we're just gonna have it over rice and let the good juices and the good flavor there kind of sit on top and get into the rice. That's okay. Oh my goodness, this smells really good. It's beginning to smell really yummy. Really yummy. Once the pork gets a little bit more browned, I will then add the thyme. Like I said, I wish I had fresh thyme. I don't. I could use herb de Provence, but I'm gonna just go with straight thyme in terms of this dish. We've got mushrooms, onions, carrots. We've got fresh parsley. That's gonna be enough. That's gonna be enough. We're gonna just let this kind of cook and get some crispiness on it. I'm wondering if my pan's a little too crowded. I don't know. I don't think so. I think I'm gonna get the good color I want. It's just a point of being patient. How patient are you? I'm not always that patient. It's coming though. This is not a 5-minute meal. Let's just all remember that. Okay, so the pork's done. And I've taken it out because what I realized is I want to make a little bit of a roux because I do want some thickness in this. So I've got a couple of tablespoons of flour. I've got a little bit of the meat juice still in the pan, but I'm gonna get 2 tablespoons of butter and put that in. Okay? Two tablespoons of butter, in that goes. With that, and it's always, if you're making a roux, we've talked about this before, it's always 1-to-1. So if it's 1 tablespoon of butter, or 1 tablespoon of olive oil, it's 1 tablespoon of flour. So we've got 2 tablespoons of butter, and we've got, that's 1 tablespoon of flour. We've got another one up here. I keep a little container like this in my pantry so that I can just grab a teaspoon or a tablespoon or whatever I want to do whatever I want without having to get the big huge container of spices or my big thing of flour out, right? That's how I manage that. I've been having it in my, so now what I'm doing is I'm just moving around the flour into the butter, and it's becoming this really nice kind of paste even. And I want that, that's before I put the chicken broth in, that's before I put the wine in. And what I want is I want this to get a little bit toasty so it gets rid of the raw flour taste. But whatever you're doing to make a roux, if you're making, you know, if you're going back to the macaroni and cheese recipe that I did, so you'll see it's kind of a soft brown, and I want to get the flour all cooked, but I also want to get, I'm going to pour a little bit of the white wine in, but before I do that, I want to get the thyme in. So right now there's some empty spaces in, that's 2 tablespoons, because that's the only herb I'm using, and it's not fresh, so I need it to warm up a little bit. Oh my goodness, that is warming up. But I want to make sure that the little places where the pork cooked on the bottom of the pan get scraped up before I put all the liquid in. So this is getting my roux kind of dark. It's actually kind of green now because it's got that thyme in it. But I can tell and smell that it's a nuttiness that's happening. It doesn't smell like the raw flour anymore. So that's okay. And here it is. Like I said, I usually have one thing of, this does not want to open today. I usually have one brick of broth in my pantry just in case I can't get or have not remembered to thaw out my own broth, which is a different day. We should make broth together. Okay, so this is cooking. And I'm going to put a little chicken broth in to deglaze the bottom of the pan because I want to get all those good little crispy bits off the bottom and the onions off the side. And I want to bring and get that. The other thing I'm doing is I'm actually I think I'll get the whisk out because I want to get the lumps of the roux into the chicken broth. So I'm really making like a really fine gravy at this moment. If I don't put the rest of the chicken broth in, if I don't put the wine in, it's going to be a lumpy gravy. And if I don't do this and whisk in the roux to the chicken broth, oh my gosh, this would be great gravy right now. There would be lumps in the soup. It would almost be like these little tiny fake dumplings that would make you want dumplings, but that aren't dumplings. So, okay, so it's a smooth gravy. So it is ready for, and I've got all the bits off of the bottom. So I'm ready for the 4 cups, well, the rest of the chicken broth brick, say that 5 times fast. I'm gonna whisk this a little bit more because I still have control of what's in the pan at this point. I've got the thyme, I've got the roux, I've got the chicken broth. Let's get all of that mixed together. I'm going to put 1 glass of white wine in. So that's in there. All the alcohol is going to cook off. So nothing to fear if you're not an alcohol drinker or liker. Okay, so now I have this really nice chicken broth that's got a roux in it. That's it's very thin, which is okay. Let me show you how thin it is. It's just, I mean, it's just thin, right? But ultimately that roux is gonna thicken and give us some good broth to cook everything else back in. So we're gonna add the meat back in, and it goes. It's not completely cooked, I just seared it, so that's okay. And then let's add our vegetables, right? Oh my goodness, this looks so good. It's really simple. It's just a point of kind of in and out of the pool, right, at this point. So it's not a fancy dish. It's a yummy dish. And sometimes we think about French food as being really complicated and really, and there are a lot of French dishes that take a lot of steps, and there are a lot of pieces too. This is not one of those. This is just a basic French stew. I'm gonna take a couple of bay leaves and put those in as well. I'm gonna put 3 in because I love the sweetness of the bay leaf. And in they go. Salt and pepper is in there. Thyme is in there. And now I'm just gonna bring this up to a rolling boil. So I'm gonna put it back towards the low end of medium high. And once it gets a rolling boil, I'm gonna turn it down to low, and I'm gonna walk away. Put the lid on, walk away. So that is that. I'll show you what it looks like when we're done. Thanks for cooking with me, friends. It's much more interesting when we're together. Hi, friends. So it's been a couple of hours, and the pork's really tender, and my dear friend Martha taught me to keep spoons in a jar, and that way you always have spoons available. But I love it so that I don't use the same spoon when I'm tasting, right? Oh my gosh, that broth has just gotten so much better. It's not thick, but it's got a good kind of heartiness to it. That thyme is right on point. And it's time to add the heavy cream. It's a French dish, let's not pretend. I've got the water boiling for, now you could put 1 cup, you could put 2 cups. It is your call. I've put 1/3 of a pint in, and it's changing the color. And I'm gonna just let that kind of seep in and get more friendly with everybody while the water boils for the rice. So we're probably looking at another, 10-15 minutes in terms of this kind of getting to know itself. I'm gonna leave the lid off and just let it cook away, and then I'm gonna let the rice do its thing, and then I'm gonna serve this baby up. Oh, friends. Okay, now I need one more little taste, right? Oh my goodness, it's such a nice color. I don't need to add extra salt. I don't need to add extra pepper. I seasoned the vegetables, I seasoned the meat as I was building the flavors. The wine has a nice little undercurrent. Yeah, that's gonna be really good. I'm gonna chop some parsley and serve that on top. Oh my goodness, it's almost like being in Paris. Okay friends, here we are over rice with some fresh parsley. I wish you could reach through and have a spoonful, or just come knock on the door. Hope what you make tonight for dinner is yummy and feeds your soul as well as your belly. Bon appetit!